Now, the Bible tells us that Satan comes immediately to take away the word that was sown in the hearts. So since we have started this series, you probably have ran into more fools. Very likely. With this, today we're going to be talking about recovering from contact with a fool. How do you recover from contact with a fool? Now, with that, you need to know the symptoms, because if you don't know the symptoms, you won't know that you need to recover. And you won't know to take the steps to recover. But with that, as we've stated, our theme for this whole thing is life will be better if we avoid foolish entanglements. And so with that, we've talked about identifying fools. And we've said, understand, we have all played the fool at some point. There are multiple kinds of fools. There's momentary fools. There's seasonal fools. I almost said flu, but some of it's the same, just a little different. And then there's lifers. They're a fool for life. And God bless you if you run into one of those. Now, at that point, you can't avoid fools entirely. Some of them may be at your family reunion. Some of them may be at work tomorrow. You're not going to be able to avoid fools entirely, but just avoid entanglements. Always have the ability in some way, shape, or form to be able to walk away. As long as you can walk away, you're not entangled. Okay? And we've said that fools, part of identifying them is knowing that they lack understanding on purpose. It's not that they don't have the information. It's not that they don't have the facts, but they know better. They know better than all the facts. They ignore all of that. And so with that also, fools are contagious. They're actually more contagious than COVID. And actually more dangerous as well. Fools can kill you. Also, fools are often used by the enemy. They are used to get you off track. Proverbs 13:20 in the Message Bible says, become wise by walking with the wise. Hang out with fools and watch your life fall to pieces. You see, hanging out with fools, getting tangled with fools will bring problems into your life. It just will. And so we need to be able to handle them according to what the Word says. Now, the need for recovering from contact with a fool. Let's look and see what the symptoms are so that you can know. You might think, well, I didn't think they were a fool. Yeah, but you're showing all the symptoms. You're showing the symptoms of having had contact with a fool. So let's look and see what the symptoms are. Proverbs 23 verse 9 says, do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of your words. Now, do not speak in the hearing of a fool. I'd like to modify that just a little bit. I'm not trying to change Scripture. I'm just wanting to illustrate. Don't respond to a fool on social media. Don't speak in the hearing of a fool. Well, they might not hear it, but they'll read it. For he will despise the wisdom of your words. I want to emphasize that word despise. You see, at that point, when you interact with a fool, you're going to feel them despising. They will use words that let you know they don't like you or your mama. They things like that. It will be hurtful to your heart. It will impact your emotions. So you need to avoid that. So don't take a fool's words to heart. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more and go more in detail to it. Now then in Proverbs 14:7 in the Holman Christian Standard Bible. I didn't want to put HCSB because I wouldn't remember what it was. But the Holman Christian Standard Bible in Proverbs 14:7 says this, stay away from a foolish man. You will gain no knowledge from his speech. And believe me, they can deliver some speeches. Fools love to give speeches. Fools will tell you exactly how it is, and they will go down it and back up it, and what's your problem? You won't gain any knowledge from their speech. But it don't feel good to get the speech. Somebody say amen. It impacts you emotionally to get the speech. It negatively impacts you. You see, the thing of it is, on some of this, how many of you are human? Okay, a higher percentage than normal. But as a human being, you have an emotional response to things. Now, especially us guys, let me qualify this. See, a lot of us guys, we have been trained not to show the emotion. And when I'm saying an emotional response, I'm not talking about your expression of emotion. I'm talking about the inward emotion. Because a lot of times you have feelings on the inside you never let on the outside. Thank you for that amen. Men, and understand this, ladies, defend me. No response. Okay. I mean, I was thinking the ladies were going, yes, amen, and got nothing. I'm here all by myself. Men are just as emotional as women. Men as a whole do not express emotion in general like women. But the internal aspect of emotion, we're all alike because we're all human. From that standpoint, a guy can be just as mad as a hornet and you can't tell nothing. Might be just sitting there staring at you. But the same thing is, he might walk up and hit you, and next day, or even an hour later, you can be buddies. You make a woman mad, and God help you. It won't be over in a day. Amen. I'd much rather make a man mad than a woman. Anyway, I better go on before I get myself in trouble. Anyhow, but rule one of digging holes is stop digging. Let's look at Proverbs 17:12. It says, let a man meet a bear robbed of her cubs rather than a fool in his folly. And as some people say, enough said. You interact with a fool, he says it's better to run into an angry mama bear. Let's put it this way, you're going to get tore up. So let's look at the three symptoms that we've identified here. First, you're going to feel despised. You're going to have things said to you and actions towards you that are very negative, that will impact you emotionally. And very likely, you can be on the receiving end of a speech that lets you know how big of an idiot you are, and so forth and so on. And you will get tore up. The bottom line with any of those, if you're dealing with any of those symptoms, because see, the thing of it is, it's not that there's something wrong with you if you have one of those symptoms. If you feel despised, it's not because there's something wrong with you, it's because you interacted with a fool. And you need to adjust. And number one, try to avoid it, but you're not going to be able to avoid it. There's too many of them out there. And especially with all of us being at least a momentary fool, we're all going to run into it. So we best know how to deal with it. So let's look at the process of recovery. Now, in this, the problem, holding on to the problem, is the problem. Let me say that again. Holding on to the problem is the problem. See, when you're focusing on the fool, well, that fool, da 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 da, that fool made me just so mad, da 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 da. Let it go. Play Frozen. Let it go. But see, the problem is holding on to the problem. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to address the problem. But you got to let go of the problem to be able to address it. Because as long as you're holding on to the problem, you will never be able to address the problem. Now, how do you catch monkeys? First time I ever saw monkeys in the wild was in India. We're driving down the road headed to a village that we're going to preach in, and I see this big tree. It's kind of the only tree out there. And I see this big tree up there, and all of a sudden the sun's kind of shining through it, and I can see stuff moving around in it. And at that point, I couldn't see good enough to tell, is it 1, 2, but I could tell it looked like about 10 or 12. And with some of them being real close together, they looked to be the size of humans. And I'm like, what in the world is getting ready to go on? We're out in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden I saw a monkey drop to the ground and do something and go back up. And I'm like, that's monkeys. Those things are agile, they're fast. And chasing them in a tree, you're not going to catch them. So all over the world, there's different ways where they are that people catch them, but it all comes down to one basic thing. I'm going to use one particular analogy. Is in some places, what they will do is they'll take like a coconut or a gourd, and they'll cut a hole out in it, clean out the inside, and the hole's big enough that the monkey can slide his hand in. But then they'll put nuts or some kind of bait on the inside. Then they'll tie the coconut or the gourd to a tree or to a post or something like that. And then they'll just sit back and wait. Monkey ends up coming by, smells it, goes over, he wants the nuts or whatever. He sticks his hand down in there, grabs a fistful of them, but a fistful of nuts can't come back through the hole. The only way he can get out and get away is to let go of the nuts. So the ones trying to catch them just walk up. They don't have to be in a hurry, because here's the thing about monkeys. They won't let go. And so their adversary, in that case a human, comes up, catches them, and off they go. And the problem, the way they get caught, is by not letting go. See, the problem is holding on to the problem. Now, in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 26, and this is in the King James Version. I'm not a Greek scholar, but after looking at some Greek study helps and so forth, it seems like the King James is actually the best translation on this, because some of the other translations actually leave an entirely different opinion from what King James does. And when I saw that and I started looking it up, I believe that the King James is the best out of them. And here he says this, 2 Timothy 2:26. He's talking about ministering to people. Any of you ever try to help someone and they just wouldn't let certain things go? They either had this crazy thought and they wouldn't let that thought go, or they had issues with somebody and they would never let that issue go. So-and-so did them wrong, or a church did them wrong, and so they never let go of it. And so all you're doing to try to help them, it all eventually blows up because they won't let go. Anybody ever experienced that? Yeah. And so with this, he's talking about people like that. He uses the phrase in a previous verse. He talks about those who oppose themselves. See, a lot of people oppose themselves. Their biggest problem isn't everybody else, it's themselves. And they oppose themselves. And when a person opposes themselves, in other words, it's like the monkey with his fist in the gourd or the coconut, and he won't let go. He can get away, if he lets go of it. But if he refuses to let go of it, he is going to be captured. And he says here, talks about those that oppose themselves, he says basically to minister to them that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will. See, at that point, the enemy just, all he's got to do is put the gourd out there with the nuts in it or the fruit in it and just wait. And he can capture them because they won't ever let go of the problem. Holding on to the problem is the problem. See, it's like what we talked about in the other series, the 7 questions that will shape America's future. See, the bottom line is we can be trying to prove we're right, trying to prove other people are wrong, but the bottom line is neither one of those are going to get us to a solution. Neither one's going to get us to a solution. And if we hold on to those, all the devil's going to do is capture us and have his way and have his will. And I don't know about you, but I don't like that fella. And I don't want him to win. And so I want to let go of stuff and be able to reach a solution. Thank you for your support. Anyway, let's look at the story of Joseph in this, because Joseph had to let a lot of stuff go. Now, it amazes me how I don't know all theologians and I don't know all Bible scholars, but it amazes me how many theologians and Bible scholars leave the impression, I have heard them say it verbatim, that Joseph is the only person outside of Jesus that the Bible never points out any of his flaws. And when I hear them say that, I'm thinking, dear God, have you ever read the Bible? I mean, Joseph had some big time problems. What? He had, you want me to tell you his biggest problem? Ego. Ego. Pride. Now, he was young, so let's give him a pass on some of it. But I want to tell you something. You let me know if you have a dream that says that all your kinfolk going to wind up working for you, and you go tell them, hey, God gave me a dream. Y'all going to bow down to me. You tell me how that conversation's going. And if one of your kinfolks comes and does it to you, what's your attitude toward them going to be? That egotistical maniac? He's just full of himself. Or herself. It can be women too. Equal time. I'm just... Anyway. But Joseph, and a lot of it was unintentional. He was excited over what God was showing him. He was thrilled with what God was telling him, but he didn't have wisdom in how to handle it, and he communicated from the flesh rather than from wisdom. Then he had another, matter of fact, see, he should have just kept it to himself, or sit down and talk to his dad and said, hey, I'm having these dreams. What do you think? I believe God's talking to me. Because Jacob did take it to heart, but even at first, Jacob didn't like it. Because he said, the sun and the moon and the stars bow down before me. They all understood that was mama, daddy, and all the other kids. And Jacob kind of told him to watch his mouth. That's the epic paraphrase. But, you see, he didn't handle that right. Now, how many of you have ever, please don't call out any names, how many of you have ever had someone around you, let's just say, they did not bring out the best in you? That they could just start talking, and next thing you know, you are dealing with emotions that you thought you had crucified. No issues, no problem. Oh, hallelujah. I'm going to smack them. See, Joseph brought some stuff out in his brothers. Now, his brothers already had a problem, evidently. But, see, Joseph's brothers were jealous of him, and they ridiculed him. Oh, here comes that dreamer. You know, wonder what dream he's had this time. You know, wonder what we are this time. Before we were sheaves of grain, then we were the stars. Wonder what we're going to be this time while we're bowing before him. It brought it out in them. They didn't like that. His brothers ended up wanting to kill him. You know, I won't ask you to answer this one, but, you know, somebody irritates you enough, have you know, I'll use this. That way I won't be talking about you. You know, Ruth Graham, Billy Graham's wife, was asked one time, have you ever considered divorce? And she says, no, I have never considered divorce, but I have considered murder. You know, that's Billy Graham's wife. You know, so you can end up having thoughts go through your mind at some time. You know, it's like with your kids. I brought you into this world. I can take you out. You know, those kinds. And at that point, things can affect your flesh and can affect your emotions. His brothers got to where they wanted to kill him. But, you know, the older brother talked him out of that, and his brothers sold him into slavery instead. Then when he got there, Potiphar bought him and ended up putting him over his whole house. Potiphar's wife ended up taking a liking to him. And then when he would not cooperate, then she lied about him. Any of you ever had anybody lie about you? Yeah, I've had some doozies told on me. And, you know, there is one little benefit to that. You know, with being lied about and being criticized, you get to the point that it takes more to get you worked up. You know, I can remember, I don't remember what month it was, but it was 1999. And the staff was so supportive. All of them left the room. Well, no, Tracy stayed and ducked her head because she wanted to hear what was being said. But I don't see Levin Colburn this morning. But that time Levin was, he was doing maintenance for us out at the old building. And I still remember I stand in the office there and this lady is just chewing me out. She started off with her voice raised. You got your head in the sand, and just went from there. And letting me have it. And I'm just standing there. You know, because even at that point, I'd already had enough practice that, okay. And she's letting me have it, and I still remember, I forget what Levin was doing, but he opens the office door to cut through the outer office, cut through to get some stuff. He opens the door, never takes his hand off the doorknob, looks, his eyes get about that big, he turns around and leaves. No help at all. But at that point, well, it was over, and some of you remember the situation. The year 2000. All the computers are going to shut down. There's going to be utter chaos. The Antichrist is going to rise. And everything is going to transition. And the end of the world is going to start. Anybody remember that? I know the world ended 20 years ago, but I don't know if you can still remember. But anyway, and she's telling me that this guy I need to listen to and everything. And I said, no, I don't need to. Well, you know, and she lets into me again. And you know, I just let her go on for a little bit. I mean, she's a good-hearted lady, but she was wrong. And at that point, she finally stopped. She ran out of wind. And she stopped, and I just looked at her, and I told her, I said, no. I said, we're not going to do that. I said, because it's not going to be a big problem. I said, I've heard all the stuff you're talking about. And I said, I actually took it and went to the Lord about it to see what was going to happen. I said, because He knows. Amen. And I said, He told me there would be a couple little glitches, but nothing major, and everything would be fine. I said, so we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to keep going. Well, and she never came back again. And so on that, and again, I've had some doozy lies told over me. But where I'm going with some of this, you've got to learn not to take things to heart. Whether they're a momentary fool or a seasonal fool or even a lifer, you've got to get to where your skin is thick enough that it don't bother you. Because it's coming. Caution, fools ahead. You're going to feel being despised. You're going to feel whatever the speech is about. You're going to run into that mama bear that's lost its cubs, and they're going to try to tear you up. You got to be able to let it go. Joseph dealt with it. He's there after his brothers and after Potiphar's wife, and then obviously Potiphar, he throws him in jail unjustly. He doesn't know it's unjustly, but it's still, Joseph knew. Joseph knew he didn't deserve it. See, there's sometimes you suffer unjustly. And see, one thing that I've always done, and I'm not trying to break my arm, patting myself on the back or nothing. I'm teaching. I have never tried to defend myself against any lies. Because at that point, the thing that I have come to realize, there's two people who know the truth for sure. God and me. And people I feel that know me will know. And those situations, I've answered any questions or anything like that, but I didn't spend my time on defending. Because if somebody's not going to believe you, it doesn't matter how much you tell them. And so on a lot of that, I've just left it to God. You take care of it. You know the truth. I know the truth. I'll leave the rest in your hands. And so Joseph didn't start out there, but he did at least end there, thank God. When the cupbearer had the dream that he was going, and Joseph told him, you're going to be reinstated in 3 days. Guess what the cupbearer did 3 days later? He got restored and forgot. Joseph who? He totally forgot him. You ever have anybody forget you? Just totally, somebody that shouldn't remember, just totally forget you. Forget the situation, forget that, forget the other. Joseph had the same thing. In life, you're going to end up having stuff like that on occasions. But what did Joseph do? He didn't take it to heart. He worked through it. Genesis 45:5 tells us what he did when his brothers came back and he finally revealed himself to his brothers. Genesis 45:5 says this. He says, but now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves. He's not telling them, I forgive you. No, he said, don't be angry at yourself. In other words, he's already processed it on his own. He don't have a problem with them. That's amazing. He said, don't y'all be angry with yourselves. He's moved past the situation with him. See, the only way you can tell you're fully over it is if it doesn't bother you anymore. Now, we'll get into forgiveness here in just a second. But anyway, let's read on. He says, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. Now, he wasn't saying God had y'all sell me into slavery. He wasn't saying that. He was just saying God wanted me down here anyway. Y'all just decided to help him. But God wanted me here to preserve life. You see in that, Joseph didn't let what his brothers or Potiphar or any of the others, whatever they said or did, he didn't let it stay in his heart. What did he do? He looked for what God was wanting to do. You know, in other words, Lord, you spoke to me, you talked to me, you said all of this, and now this is what's going on. What are you wanting to have happen? Where are you wanting all of this to end? And through that process, he realized God had wanted him in Egypt all along because a famine was coming, and he was supposed to not only preserve Egypt, it was also being done to preserve Israel. He saw the purpose. You see, at this point, let me throw this out. Again, back to our three questions. Do we want to prove we're right? Do we want to prove others are wrong? Or do we want to be the solution? God isn't bothered about proving anybody's right. God's not really interested in proving other people are wrong. Because God loves everybody. What God wants and what He's working on is a solution. Now, at that point, are we working with Him? Is really the question. And that's where Joseph landed. All right, what's God wanting to do here? What's He wanting to happen? See, we need to be on God's side. That's ultimately where we need to be. We need to be on God's side. What is God trying to do? God's not trying to cause division in our nation. God's not trying to cause a war in our nation. God's actually wanting to bring us together. Now, we helping Him or are we hindering Him? That one was rhetorical. But at that point, that's what we got to look at. Because, see, things happen, and again, fools can cross your path. It may be a momentary, a seasonal, whatever. You know, election season's a really good time for seasonal fools. It seems like the season's in during that time. But at that point, are we working on what God's wanting to work on? And that's where Joseph moved to. And he focused on accomplishing that purpose. And thank God he did a great job. He did a great job. So what to do? This what to do is a little bit longer than most of them. So stay away from fools as much as possible. You're not going to be able to entirely, but definitely don't get entangled. Always keep the ability to walk away. Make sure you do that as much as possible. Then secondly, don't take their words or actions to heart. If you can't get your fist out, let it go. Because the whole reason for this is so you will get captured. The whole reason for putting something in your life. You see, the word offense in the Greek is literally translated from the word that they used, that the Greeks used for the bait of a trap. See, the fruit inside that gourd was the offense. That was the technical name. And see, that's what God does with it. That's what the devil does with it, and God's wanting to set us free from. He's wanting us to let go of the offense. He's wanting us to let go of the bait that's being used to trap us. But as long as we hold on to it, we're not going to be able to do that. And we will get trapped, and instead of God's will happening, the enemy's will happen. And I don't know about you, but I don't like His will. I'm not for His will. I'm opposed to His will. His will is sin. God's will is to bless us, to prosper us, to give us a hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Then thirdly, forgive. Forgive. And I want to say something about this, because to me, the way we've taught forgiveness in general in the body of Christ has left an impression that is wrong. Well, forgive and forget just like God. I'm not Him. I'm not God. I'm supposed to act like Him. But I don't know how He forgets it and never remembers it again. I don't yet know how to do that. I just don't. Would to God that I did. Would love to. But I don't have that yet. And actually that leaves a wrong impression. Because again, Jesus, Peter asked Jesus, how many times do we forgive? 70 times 7, which is 490? Well, that's 1, that's 2. You remembering all those others to get up to 490. And at that point, Jesus, no, that's not what you do. In other words, he did say 70 times 7, but that was all in one day. We wouldn't make it if somebody did us wrong 490 times in a day. Or should I say, they wouldn't make it if they did that. But you see, when you forgive, you may remember it. And especially when it has impacted you. Some things impact you a little, some things impact you a lot. Some things impact you personally. Some things impact your kids. And God helps somebody when they impact your kids. I'm a whole lot less concerned about what somebody does to me, especially when my boys were little, but don't mess with them. Leave them alone. They didn't do nothing to you. And even if they did, you the adult, get over it. But there's things that affect us differently. See, forgiveness is a choice that is an act in a moment. I choose to forgive. But that doesn't mean my emotions have changed. That doesn't mean I'm still not upset. Well, if you're still upset, you haven't forgiven. I beg to differ. Forgiveness is a choice by faith. And you choose to forgive. Now, it might take a little while for your emotions to follow in line. I've had stuff that has happened, and I won't go into detail about it, that, some of you know about it because I vented on you. Now, it wasn't that they did it, but something was happening, and there were people that I just had to get it out or I was going to explode. And I didn't want to do anything wrong. But any of you ever get really, 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 really mad? And I have been. And I grew up in Elkton. And, you have tendencies. Saved or unsaved. And so I would need to vent at times because I had chosen to forgive. And it took me a while before I could actually interact without an emotion. It took me a while to get to where I could do that. But I chose to forgive from the beginning. Amen. I chose to. Not because I liked them. Is this real enough? I did it because God said do it.